Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, Manisha. Is anyone else expected?
Yes, sir. Kavya.
Okay, if she'll join, she'll join. I want to finish this Basava today. So let's start. Whoever joins will join.
Okay, sir.
Yeah, because we are running out of time. Yeah. Well, Basava is the usual title by which this man is known. But his real name, some people say, is Basaveshwara, and quite a few people in Karnataka actually call him Basavana. It's not Basavana, not Anna as in Telugu, but Anna, Na. He's also called Basavana by people in Kannadiga speaking areas. Basava was a Kannadiga, and he belonged to the Bhakti movement, and sorry, he belonged to the Bhakti movement, but his Bhakti movement is different from the Bhakti movement of Ramanujacharya. So what is the difference? The difference is that Ramanujacharya was a Vaishnava. He came from the Vaishnava Sampradaya, whereas Basava comes from the Shaiva Sampradaya. Okay, and as usual, there is a lot of confusion about when he was born and when he died. People say he was born in 1130 CE and that he died in 1167 CE. So that means he lived for 37 years. But there is another date that is discussed, and people say that is probably the date, which is 1105 CE. He is supposed to have been born in that year. And so, well, there is no way of establishing which of these two dates is correct. While the date of death says 1167 CE, there is no other date there. So possibly we can take it that he did die in 1167 CE, but one is not really sure about this particular thing. There is also another controversy that surrounds him, and that is about the Lingayat tradition. One school of thought claims that Basava was born into the Lingayat tradition, and another school of thought basically says that he was not born a Lingayat, but he started the Lingayat tradition. He's supposed to have started that tradition. Now, some people distinguish between Lingayat tradition and Sharana tradition. Sharana is that. And they say that he was definitely born in the Sharana tradition. And it is this Ishtalinga, which I have put here, the photograph. This is supposed to have been the creation of Basava, and this is what the Lingayats started wearing, is what some people say. Some people say no, he only carried out social reforms within the Lingayat tradition, which is a bit unfair to him, because his social reform is something that went beyond the Lingayat tradition. Just because he was somebody who believed in Shiva and in Shaiva thinking, it does not mean that he had influence only on the Lingayats. He had a wider influence on a lot of people. However, one should believe that the central deity of Basava's Bhakti movement, and Basava's Bhakti movement comes much after Ramanujacharya's Bhakti movement. In fact, some people say, is he a Bhakti philosopher at all? So I don't know if what is the way in which one would answer that question. As long as you're saying that somebody, you're using it in a generic sense, that, you know, he talked about Bhakti Bhavana. And so since he talked about that, one can definitely say he's a Bhakti philosopher. So that is my personal view of it. Unless, of course, you say that the Bhakti movement has X, Y, Z characteristics, and not all of those are there in Basava. I'm not an expert on religion and spiritual matters, so I cannot comment on that. I'll just take it that he was a Bhakti philosopher. But instead of following Vishnu, which is what the Vaishnava tradition does, he follows the Shaiva tradition. So he was born in this place called Basavana Bage Vadi, Bagewadi. He was born there, and he died and lived most of his life and died in Kudala Sangama. He was sent to Kudala Sangama from Basavana Bagewadi by his father to a very famous temple near in Kudala Sangama. And all these areas are in present day Karnataka, and they're pretty close to the border of what is now Andhra Pradesh and Telangana, especially close to Telangana, some parts. Some parts are close to Andhra and Andhra Pradesh. But these are closer to Telangana, especially if you go from the Mehboob district, kind of that side of the geography. Sorry. He was a social reformer without doubt, and he lived during the reign of two dynasties. The first dynasty was the Kalyani Chalukyas. Okay, the Kalyani Chalukyas was the first dynasty, and this dynasty was replaced by the Kalachuri, what do you say, Kalachuri dynasty, Kalachuri. And his time in the Kalyani Chalukya dynasty is very little. Most of his time was in the Kalachuri dynasty period. In fact, the Chalukyan Empire at one time was a monolithic empire, especially under the rule of Pulakesin. It was called the Badami Chalukya Empire. And Badami is the name of a place which is located somewhere in Madhya Pradesh now. And this particular empire, when Pulakesin was the king, this particular empire was huge. But with the death of Pulakesin, and incidentally, let me also draw your attention to something. People say Pulakesin, Pulekesin. The sin is because of the Sanskrit word. Some people say it is not Pulakesin, but it is Pulikesin. Puli, as you know, is either a tiger, and I'm told sometimes even lions are called pulis. Okay, and Pulikesi is, if you look at the lion's mane, so he was like a lion or he was like a tiger, I don't know, whatever. So that is supposed to be the source of his name, Pulakesin, but people say it should have been Pulikesin. But I don't know how true this story is. So we will leave it there. We will not get into too much about Pulakesin. Okay, then you will find that Badami itself was not the original capital. It was actually a place called Vatapi. Okay, Vatapi, Vatapi. And I do not know the reason why the Chalukyas moved the capital from Vatapi to Badami. After his death, then you will see, not after his, Pulakesin's death, you see that the empire split. Okay, it ceased to exist in the northern, slightly central northern part, which is the Madhya Pradesh part. And two wings of it were established, one being the Kalyani Chalukyas. It's called the Kalyani Chalukyas because of the fact that it had Kalyani, which is also called Basava Kalyan. Now, in those days, it was called Kalyani, but now it is called Basava Kalyan. This is called the Western Chalukyan Empire by some historians, and this is the Kalyani Chalukyan Empire. And these people ruled from Basava Kalyan, or Kalyani as it was called in those days. Now, the other Chalukyan empire piece went to Andhra Pradesh. It went towards the Godavari districts, the present Godavari districts. It started off in the West Godavari district, which is in a place called Padavegi. Okay, Pedavegi. What am I saying? I'm sorry. Pedavegi, P-E-D-A, Peda, V-E-G-I, Pedavegi, which is, some people say the present day Eluru, and some people say no, it was somewhere near this Eluru, but it wasn't Eluru. But some people vehemently argue that it was Eluru. But what everybody what everybody agrees is that this dynasty ultimately made Rajamandri, which originally was called Rajamahendravaram. That is actually the original name of the place, Rajamahendravaram. And people, the British couldn't say that, so they made it Rajamandri. Like they made Bhongir out of Bhuvanagiri. So, it's one of those distortions. Quite a few of these distortions have been corrected very silently in the erstwhile undivided Andhra Pradesh. Like, for example, Kakinada, they used to call Kokanada, and then Kadapa was Kudappa. And all of them have changed their names, but Rajamandri for some reason and Bhongir for some reason continue to be called Bhongir and Rajamandri. Anyway, but that's besides the point. These people who ruled from Rajamahendravaram, these Chalukyas were called the Vengi Chalukyas. Okay, they were basically called the Vengi Chalukyas or the Eastern Chalukyas. Now, in the western part, the Chalukyas were replaced by the Kalachuri dynasty. And this dynasty is credited to have credited to be behind the Elephanta caves that you find near Mumbai. Elephanta caves are pretty famous. You have to climb a lot to get there. I went there when I was physically all right, so I could climb, and they're nice. And then they also claim that the Ajanta caves. Now there are two parts of it. One part of the Ajanta caves has paintings from the Buddhist period, and the other has paintings from the Vaishnava period. So the Ajanta caves, which were which show the Vaishnava paintings, these caves were supposed to be the creations of the Kalachuri dynasty. That is what is the claim that is made. Okay, so Basava's main existence was during the time of the Kalachuri dynasty. And most of his reformist ideas came from his poems, which were called vachanas. Now, you can choose to write it as Vachana, vachana. Vachanas is actually English. Vachana in singular or plural in Sanskrit is vachana. Okay. So you can also write it with V-A with a with a line on top, C with that line, vachana or vachanas. Okay. And he was somebody who shot into prominence during the rule of King Bijala. Some people say he was the second Bijala. Some people just call him Bijala. Some people say he's Bijala 2. Some people say he's just Bijala. It doesn't matter. If you want, you can write Bijala 2, or if you want, you just write Bijala. And it is actually after this particular king that Bijapur, there is a place, if you go from the Mehboob side, Kodangal, and if you go there, that road leads to Bijapur. And Bijapur is named after Bijala. Okay, so it was during the rule of Bijala that we find Basava coming into the limelight. And since he was on this side, you will also see, if you go to the Mehboob district and all, you will see that there are a number of influences of Basava there even today. There are certain writings about Basava. One of the earliest writings is uh, called Basavaraja Devara Ragale. Okay. Basavaraja Devara Ragale. This was written by a Kannada poet whose name was Harihara. It is believed that uh, there are about 25 fragments of this particular work, but only 13 fragments are actually available today. It is originally supposed to have contained about 11,800 poems, but I am not very sure if it did, how many are there in the 13 fragments that have been retrieved. The most definitive work on Basava comes in Telugu, actually, which is not surprising given that that's a border area. And it was this particular book was written by a Telugu Bhakti, Shaiva Bhakti follower whose name was Palkuri Somanatha. Okay. And this particular book calls Basava as, it calls him Basava Bhakti Bhandari. Okay, Bhakti Bhandari is a treasure house of Bhakti. Okay, now this book is called Basava Charita, which is the history of Basava, and it says that his parents were, sorry, I'm not well, if you don't mind. I'm going to be a little fidgety. It claims that his parents were Shaiva Brahmins. His father is supposed to have been called Madarasa, 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 and his mother was Madalambike. That was the name of, according to Basava Charita. Okay, that is the name that we find. Lot of people say that Basava himself is nothing but a Kannadaization of the name of Shiva's bull, Nandi, which was Vrishabha. Okay, the Sanskrit word for a bull is Vrishabha, Vrishaba, and it's called the Nandi anyway. So he was named Basava as after the Nandi, Vrishabha. He grew up in Kudala Sangama. He learned he had his early education in the area which is the Kudala Sangama, in a particular temple where his father sent him. And this is at the confluence of, it is called Kudala Sangama. Sangama is usually where you have a confluence, two things coming together or whatever. And so the two rivers that came in here, Sangama, is the Krishna River and its tributary, the Malaprabha. Okay, so that is where he was educated. And he was, um, like I told you, educated in the Sangameshwara temple. And it was a temple that imparted education in a tradition of Shaivas called the Lakulisha, Lakulisha, Lakulisha hyphen Pashupata, Pashupata, Pashupata. See, Shiva's name is also Pashupati. Okay, you have a very famous temple in Kathmandu, which is called the Pashupati temple. Pashupata is actually an astra that is supposed to have been used by, astra or a weapon used by Shiva. Okay, so this tradition is called the Lakulisha Pashupata. He was married to his maternal cousin, meaning his mother's brother's daughter, Bava. They also have the Bava tradition, not just us. And her name was Gangambike. And his uncle was actually an Amatya, the Mukhya Amatya of King Bijala, the Kalachuri king that I talked to you about. And due to his proximity to his uncle, Bijala actually made Basava in charge of the treasury of his kingdom. And Basava basically took charge of the treasury, and he had the idea that he will use his position for the dissemination of Shaivite Bhakti movement. His uncle and father-in-law died soon after, and so the Mukhya Amatya position went to Basava, and that is when, I mean, he was invited by Bijala, and that is when the king also married Basava's own sister, whose name was Nagamma, and this gave Basava greater proximity to the king and also to advise him on matters spiritual and not purely temporal. Okay, and he used the treasury to initiate a movement for the revival of the Shaiva tradition, which was actually dying out at that time. So Basava reinvigorated the Shaiva tradition. He was the one who encouraged the Jangamas. The Jangamas are the people who are wandering Shaiva monks, okay, monks, monks or sannyasins, and they were also priests and gurus. Now, for some strange reason, within this Jangamas, some people called themselves Veera Shaivas. I do not know what are the reasons behind them calling themselves Veerashaivas, because they are not, there is no documented evidence of their having fought or shown their bravery in some field which required them to show bravery, but they basically call themselves the Veerashaivas. And the Jangama basically means a linga that is moving. Okay, a linga that is moving instead of being frozen in time, and that is the reason why, uh, as somebody who believed in um, somebody who believed in the idea of the Jangama, you find that this Ishtalinga that you can see on your screen was suggested as a way of carrying God around with you. Now, Basavira Shaivas uh, are the priests in two very disparate and very, very far removed places. One is Sri Salem, okay, and the other one is Kedarnath. Badrinath, and above that you have Kedarnath. In Badrinath, which is also a Shiva, this thing, you will find that the priests are Brahmins, but in Kedarnath, the priests are Veerashaiva Jangamas. And in Sri Salem, the priests in the Shiva temple are Veerashaiva Jangamas, whereas the priests in the Brahmarambika, his wife Parvati consort, the priests in that particular temple are Brahmins once again. So it's a very peculiar situation. Uh, Now there are, as usual, a number of challenges to the idea of what did Basava actually write. Some people claim that 16th, 17th century interpolations have got into a lot of the poems that are attributed uh, to Basava, and that is the reason why till today Basava Charita uh, of Somanatha is considered to be the most authentic because there are no insertions in that. Basava was actually influenced by the very early Shaiva Bhakti tradition people who are called the Nayanars. And these Nayanars are 63 in number. Some people say Basava is the 64th Nayanar, but not everybody accepts that. Okay, the Nayanars are the equivalent of the Vaishnavite or Vaishnava Alvars, who were the followers of Ramanujacharya. But we do not know who the followers, who did the Nayanars actually follow? Who is their guru? Like there's no Ramanujacharya kind of figure as far as the Nayanars are concerned. Okay, Basava distinguishes between two kinds of worship. One which is what he calls sthavara, okay, and that pertains to temples and religious scriptures or books, call them whatever you want to call. And the Jangama, who is moving constantly and seeking the truth through movement, through his experience. Basava was against the Sthavara tradition and was for the Jangama tradition. And that is why he said a Shaivite should always carry Shiva with him wherever he's going. He doesn't need a temple, he doesn't need a book. No, life will teach him the lessons. All he needs is this Ishtalinga, which is a Rudraksha mala. This is a slightly opulent thing. The other ones were actually a lot more simple. And the biggest social reform that you find that was carried out by Basava was he did not recognize the Varna, the Jati system. He said all human beings are human beings and they are all equal. That's all he said. And this also included women. He included women as the equals of men, which is really ahead of his times if you take him as a 12th century figure. His most important innovation is that which is called the Anubhava Mantapa. See, Anubhava Mantapa is a place where, a public place, a mandapam we call today, right? Which is an elevated, slightly higher this thing. Maybe it has a roof. People gathered at the Anubhava Mantapa and shared their experiences. Anubhava, Anubhavas is experience. Anubhava, they shared their experiences, both spiritual and temporal, and through this there is supposed to be the discovery of who Lord Shiva is, what his greatness is. So Basava preached that it is the Anubhava Mantapa when people exchange their ideas. There they realize how they can seek God and see gods in different instances in their own life, where you'll say this could not have happened if it wasn't for the intervention of a god. Like my getting a job in Osmania University as an outsider, I definitely will say is an intervention. It's an act of God. Otherwise, nobody would have given me a job in Osmania University. I don't know how I got it even till today. And some people say that Basava also synthesized uh, various traditions, but that is not really true because he was against the tradition of Adi Shankara. Adi Shankara uh, basically talked about finding the path of knowledge. Okay, whereas Basava said, find the path of devotion. That is why he's Bhakti Bhandari. Okay, so for him, that is more important. And then he had a discussion with his father. Both agreed on two things, that bhakti will consist of shruti and smriti. Okay, uh, but they disagreed on the path to moksha. Father believed in this idea of sthavara, that's why I sent him to a temple, but his son believed in personal devotion and experience as you're moving around. Shruti is very simple. Shruti basically means that which you can hear. Okay. And Smriti is the compilations of the wisdom of rishis of the ancient period. Now, for Basava, there was no need to be in a temple, in a sthavara. You could get this very thing again and again. What the rishis wrote, he says those smritis are good, but even we can experience those smritis ourselves in our own life. So he says, wander, wander, and life is the greatest teacher. And while you're wandering, go ahead and think of everything. Think of what you're hearing, make sense of it. So that is the Shruti. that you hear things, you come back and share it as a smriti in the Anubhava Mantapa. So the Anubhava Mantapa is both Shruti and Smriti without having to be Sthavara and by being Jangama. I had enough of this. I don't know why we are going on and what is political about this. I don't know. So tomorrow
Yes,
we,
sir.
yeah, tomorrow we'll pick up Ziauddin Barni, who's a horrible man, but we'll have to
Why,
do.
sir?
Tomorrow you'll know why he's horrible. Okay?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
You'll find out for yourself. He's really a horrible